Different weapons. What happens when you put a bow against a pistol? Giant battle axe against a crossbow? Or a Minecraft sword against Captain America's shield? I really want to slap somebody with this.
You might think that a gun always beats a knife, but in reality, once you're below 21 feet in distance, that changes significantly. Whenever they're training police on how to deal with people with weapons and things like that, they always tell them to keep 21 feet apart. A while back on Node, we tried a video called the 21-foot rule. The problem with that video is that we were in a hallway and we kind of knew who would be attacking. And the element of surprise really kind of increases the chance of success for the melee weapon guy. When we are reintroducing the element of surprise, any one of these people might be attacking me, and I do not know which one it is until the time's up. I expect them to attack me right now, so we need to get ready.
All right, huddle up. We gotta conceal who gets the knife, Tris.
Don't we have 2 knives? Can we just like go 2 knives right now?
Have 1 knife.
Why don't we rock, paper, scissors? Can we just start sneaking up on them right now?
Clearly one of them is going to attack me when I least expect it as they walk over here. I know these guys. I know their tricks. I'm gonna be ready for them. They're deviously planning.
Everyone pretend like you could potentially have a knife. Guys, be on edge. Just act like you have a knife hidden in your butt, dude. Walking.
Sam, stand right here. Easily.
I told you. I wasn't even looking. He just took me down. Oh man.
So I would call that last scenario, I would call that scenario A. You're at the grocery store, you're comfortable.
Should we amp it up a little bit? Just a little bit?
Take it to 22 feet.
Sponsored segment.
That's right, today's sponsor is Mile 22 the film, which is an intense action thriller that premieres August 17th. It's directed by Peter Berg, so you know it's gonna be badass, and it has an all-star cast, including Mark Wahlberg, Lauren Cohen, Ronda Rousey, John Malkovich, and making his American film debut, Iko Uwais from The Raid. If you haven't seen that movie, definitely go and check it out. Anyway, this movie has intense close quarters combat scenes, which is inspiring this event going on here today. It also has high-tech assault weaponry and, of course, hand-to-hand martial arts. If you want to go see it, definitely go and do that on August 17th. And without further ado, let's get started and see which one of these weapons is the most deadly from 22 feet apart. Different weapons. What happens when you put a bow against a pistol? Giant battle axe against a crossbow? Or a Minecraft sword against Captain America's shield? I don't know.
Dude. Dude. Dude.
One person in the middle, 22 feet apart, different weapons, and see which one is the deadliest.
Man, I want that money!
Game on.
Ren can strike at any moment.
Woo. Just warming up here.
I like how you're facing me because
Nick,
you're
you
so
wanna
worried
see
about Zeke killing you.
Dude, I saw it out of the corner of my eye.
Soccer need it, dude.
Dude, I knew the shotgun was the right call. I didn't bite my tongue, son.
Better bite your tongue, boy.
I'm gonna get ruined. I'm gonna get ruined. I don't stand a chance.
Hey, Nico.
Hey.
Is this shot working? Is this shot working? Time to die, Ren! Who's gonna make it?
Ren did it! Ren was successful! The noisy cricket beats the lightsaber.
Does it count that I retreated?
Yeah, you survived. Yeah.
Great!
He swung. There was like that much space. We're like.
Never been so scared in my life.
Now watch, with crazy technology nowadays.
No, don't
put
you-
it into my phone. Put it into my phone. Flip the chip over and put it back into my phone.
All right, I think we've seen very clearly how this has been functioning. Now let's do one more round. Everyone picks their favorite weapon. I think I'm gonna go for this one.
No. This is mine.
Hey, you can't have that one. Oh, hey.
Hold on.
Melee's only.
No, you can't have that though.
Hey,
this is melee weapon.
hey, guys.
Ren, I can trust you, right?
Everyone calm down.
How are you still alive?
Still alive!
Take your shot. May it ring true.
I hear you.
A blind man with a bow?
A blind bowman. I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. Oh, I can. I'm not blind.
That was just a ruse! He wasn't blind at all!
The old.
Hey, Carmichael, only one can win.
The real winner of this is Nick.
I'm sorry. Ghost Michael. Don't do that to me, man.
That's it. I hope you learned something about melee versus ranged weapons. And remember, Mile 22 is in theaters August 17th. Now on to a very special segment with our producer friend, Jude.
You guys remember that conversation we had with Jude? That really good interview where he dropped a lot of wisdom bombs on us filmmakers? There's actually a lot more interesting things that were part of that conversation that we didn't quite include because they weren't quite on topic, but still really interesting. For example, what was the worst injury you've seen on set? Or who was the most famous person you worked with, and were they cool? We're actually going to jump back to that conversation and have some of these questions that were really fun. And I should mention, Jude read all the questions you guys posted in that previous video, and he'll read all the questions from this video, and we'll have him come back and we'll have him answer your questions. Throw your feet up, kick back, sit back, and listen to Jude drop some more wisdom bombs on you. You may not be able to answer this question on the camera. What's the worst injury you've ever had to deal with on set?
Oh, well, I was on a set. It wasn't my set, thankfully, but I was on this movie called Andersonville that was directed by John Frankenheimer, who is legendary Oscar Award-winning director, and it was produced by Jane Fonda and Ted Fonda. We shot in Georgia. And they called lunch, and we were shooting night shoots, so we say lunch, but it's like 2 in the morning, right? So this guy, it was raining, and they were up above the pine trees in Georgia, about 70 feet up in the air on a crane, and they called lunch, and one of the camera ops was so excited about lunch, he took his harness off while the crane was coming down, and he fell.
Oh, dang.
Face planted from 60 feet up on the ground, and the helicopter lifted him out, and I don't know if he died. I'm assuming he probably did, because that's a huge fall. But they shut down the set, and they were like, we're not going to shoot for a couple days and blah blah, and it really affected everybody, because I don't know, some of you guys may know that are in the film industry, there was a Sarah Jones thing where she was on the train tracks and she got hit, and it caused this huge ripple effect through the industry that for safety. So that was a bad one. And then I was on an Indian movie that we were shooting on a stage, and someone was up on a big crane. There's a lot of crane accidents. And they have a counterweight system, right, which is like a ballast because the weight of the camera goes up and stuff, and usually there's people on it. So there was a guy up on the camera crane, and they said, pack up. They pack up for the day, which is like our wrap. We say wrap. They say pack up, and the guys down there started taking the weights off.
Oh no.
So basically they took the weights off and the camera went down, and that guy didn't make it.
Really?
Yeah, didn't make it. So I've seen some stuff, and I've been around for some other injuries and stuff, but those two, I mean, it's just brutal when someone, like, in the end, it's a product that's going to go on a screen, and it's not worth dying over. And I say that to a lot of people too, because in the film, it's so much money and time and stress. People are always like, and I always say, look, we're not saving lives here. We're not doctors and EMTs and policemen and military. This is just entertainment.
Beef tacos and one idle beef taco. Yeah. And hopefully through interviews like this and talking to Jude, you guys are getting a little bit of a deeper understanding and more appreciation out of your movies. We're trying to make your movies better for you.
That's
and
right.
If you know what's going on behind the scenes, you can enjoy your movies even more.
I think you will definitely appreciate them more, because you'll know all the work and sacrifice on all ends. Creative end, financial ends, logistic ends. Everyone's sort of making a compromise, but the compromise is for the better. It's just like your relationship with your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your wife or your dog. It's like you constantly have to change it, to make it better. But in the end, it's the greatest thing that ever happened to you. So that's kind of what we're doing with movies.
Yeah. So we got a bunch of tacos. I think these are my beef tacos. These are the idle ones.
These are definitely the vegan.
What have you worked on? Have you worked on any Hollywood movies? What's the biggest movie you've worked on? Anything conventional that we would know?
Absolutely. Well, I started in the business, basically getting the coffee. I was a PA, a production assistant, and making phone calls and stuff. But those were on much bigger studio pictures. So, like the first one I ever did was probably one of the biggest. It was called Bicentennial Man with Robin Williams, and it was like 125 million bucks, which back then was huge. Now that's not really that big with all the Marvel movies and stuff. So I did that, and then I got under the wing of some people at Fox, so I started working on a bunch of Fox stuff. So Dude, Where's My Car was a big one I did, which was really fun. That was a really great experience because the crew really bonded. The whole thing. In fact, Danny Liner, the director, became one of my really good friends, and I took him to Thailand, and he also did Harold and Kumar and some Sopranos and stuff. But other movies, High Crimes with Ashley Judd, Morgan Freeman. I did The Wash with Snoop and Dre. I did United States of Leland that had Ryan Gosling and Kevin Spacey and Michelle Williams and Chris Klein and Jenna Malone and on and on and on. So yeah, that's some of them. I mean, I've probably got 75 feature film credits and another 25 that I'm not credited on, so over 100 films over the last 2.5, 3 decades. Wow. So I'd have to look at my records that they all blend together, but those are some of the big ones off the top of my head.
Yeah. Sorry, what was that?
Oh yeah, I just remembered some more. So I did Wedding Planner, that had J-Lo and Matthew McConaughey. I did Woman on Top, which sounds like a porn, but it's not. It's it's actually the first American film that Penelope Cruz did. She used to be a star, of course, overseas in all the Spanish-speaking countries. So it was her first American film. We shot it in San Francisco. She was awesome. It's really great. Shout out to Penelope.
Just gotta say, these tacos are delicious.
I like the potato ones. That's cool. Like I grew up in Georgia, but my family was up in Pennsylvania. So it's like Polish, Lithuanian, Slavic, all that. So they have a lot of potato stuff, potato pancakes, potato pierogies, and all that. So it's like that, but putting a Southwest flair on it.
Yeah.
Good.
Burning question on my mind is, who's the most famous person you worked with, you know, and were they cool and what were they like?
Okay, this is a good one because it's also topical. Well, I mean, there's so many that I've worked with, but the coolest ones, I gotta say, you know, there's this whole Me Too movement going around. So I find it interesting because some of these guys I know, and I'm not saying that that they didn't do these things, but I have totally different experiences with them. Obviously, I'm not a hot chick, so that's probably why. But like, for example, Kevin Spacey was an amazing person on set, really cool. And same with Morgan Freeman. They were both, you know, two of the coolest in my top 5 of people that I've worked with. But, you know, I worked with Ashton Kutcher and Sean William Scott, and what's her name? Jennifer Garner on that. And back then, Ashton was really full of himself because it was like the first thing he did off of that 70s show. So he had been a model, and then he went to do that 70s show. So he was like, well, I'm just Mr. Perfect. And he is, but you're not supposed to know that about yourself. So, you know, but eventually he turned into the person who he is now, which is really cool and down to earth. But that's I generally find that in the business, which is really interesting because I find that the OGs are really nice because they've been around the block. They've already done the fame thing. They've gotten the ego out of their heads. They're cool. It's the young guys that are like, I'm the best thing on the planet. And, you know, they really think like that. So that's my experience. I've also worked with a lot of influencers. You know, you guys, of course. And then like Roman Atwood, Furious Pete, Harley Morenstein, the Epic Mealtime Crew, Jenna Marbles, Tobuscus, a bunch of those guys again. So, you know, all over the place. But famous people, yeah, there's a million. I don't know. I could pull out my IMDb and I could go through them real quick.
Do you happen to find a difference when working with influencers versus celebs?
Oh, absolutely. In two ways. A lot of ways, actually. I think, you know, ratio-wise now, an influencer makes more money. That doesn't mean they make more money over and all. Obviously, a celeb getting $20 million. I worked with J-Lo, for example, and Matthew McConaughey on The Wedding Planner. Obviously, they're getting a lot of money. But work to money ratio, I think influencers make a lot more because they can put out a video and it becomes viral, and then they get kickback from that, right? Whereas a celebrity might have to be on a project for 3 months, you know, so a YouTuber could put out a video every week. You know what I mean? So what the result of that is that these young influencers don't know any better and they're not told any better. So they come to set obviously thinking they're the A-list talent, and they may be for that brand or whatever, but the crew is professional. The studio is professional, even if it's, you know, like YouTube or Facebook or Hulu or whoever. Generally the people they hire are professionals in the business. So you have a young guy or woman coming in and they're like, hey, we shoot this in an alleyway. We shoot it at a taco stand. This is how we do it. Like, you know, you can't tell us what to do, but we've had things that have been in place. You know, the film business has been around since the 1920s, since like the talkie days. Like Charlie Chaplin and all that. So there's things that have been, and the film borrows a lot from the military, right? Like the timings and the structure and the hierarchy, that's a big one. And I feel like, of course, if you're an actor and you came up through SAG and all that stuff, you know this system and you know the hierarchy and you know your place and you know who to go to if there's a problem or a concern or a complaint. But if you're an influencer, you don't know this world at all. You're just thrown into this already systematic world, and it's very difficult for a lot of them to adjust. Like, we've had a lot of problems dealing with influencers on various shows. But eventually the smart ones come around and they're like, okay, I can do that for this system. And they know, okay, maybe this particular show is not offering me as much money as I'm making on my personal videos, but I know it's a big opportunity to get myself seen out there and more people, so they sort of step in line. But I think that's important, especially for people my age. Like, it's a whole generational thing. And is that a word, generational thing? Yeah, so it's a whole generational thing, and so we're, like, when I came up, there was no digital, right? It was all film. So to get in the business was really hard, and it was extremely structured, and you had to prove yourself constantly. Now there's so much digital content that there's stuff shooting constantly. Yeah. So you could get in the business and be in the business, but not necessarily have that same background and structure, which is good and bad. It's great that people have opportunity, like you come and be in the business. Like, I love that. I love that someone now doesn't have to hire a helicopter, they can get a drone shot that's just as good, if not better, because they can shoot lower. Or that, you know, you can get your parents to buy you a digital camera or save some money and buy one and do some awesome stuff. And we're seeing amazing content coming from people, you know, in Iowa and Milwaukee and places that aren't even production hubs, which is awesome. But when you transition into that professional world and professional set, you should respect the craft, because everyone that's there usually has a long resume and has dealt with people who have way more experience. So you kind of got to know your place in it. That would be some advice for me if you're trying to, you know, get in the business.
It's interesting. So, let me eat this real quick. You're talking about YouTube influencers.
Yeah.
One of the things that comes to mind is there's this thing called the adpocalypse that happened. You've probably heard of it.
Oh, yeah, right.
Basically, YouTube got more stringent on their guidelines. So
Yeah.
you have guns in your video, you get demonetized, you have violence, you have swear words, etc.
Yeah.
Now, in the film industry, you have things like horror movies. I mean, you just went out and made a horror movie. I'm assuming there's probably boobs in it, there's probably blood in it.
Yeah, check.
So that's like the exact opposite of what YouTube's pushing for. Like, how do you go out and make something that's not family friendly? How do you actually find a market for this? How do you get it made?
Well, that's a very interesting point, and I would say I'm also learning about this, even though I'm a veteran in the business. It's ever changing because of the dynamics of social media and digital, distribution, basically. So that's constantly changing. The good news about independent films like mine, like The Incantation, is that you can be edgy, and audiences want to see that. They want smart stuff, they want cutting edge stuff, they want controversial stuff, right? So like for mine, for example, I got Dean Cain, who used to play Superman back in the 90s, right? So he has this like spit shine, polished, pretty boy, innocent image that he always has to do for the studios, right? He's in a million shows, and he's in Hallmark shows, and he plays the cop and the dad and whatever. In mine, he's pretty much the opposite of that. He's pretty much the devil, right? And there's like human sacrifices and some blood and some occultish and some witch stuff and all that. So that's the beauty of independent, is that if you can somehow get the money together or the financer or anybody to do your film, even if it's small, the audience is out there. They're hungry for that stuff. Like look at American Horror Stories. Some of you guys might watch that, right? Like that's real. Like they got nuns like having sex with people and chopping up bodies and like stuff you would never see in a studio. Like definitely not family friendly. But the investors know that kind of stuff catches on with people, right? So they love that edgy content. But it's not necessarily the studio way, like you said. So you can go the indie way and get distribution like we did, or you can go with the studio system and have 10 people saying, you can't say the word darn. That's, too edgy.
Okay, that makes sense. So you have to really kind of connect with that niche audience if you're going to make a niche product.
You do, and there's a demographic out there for that. Find your demographic, make the product towards that demographic, and then push it. Which comes to marketing, which is kind of what this is part of our marketing too. Like marketing is a big thing, and when you're a small indie, like if you make a film on your iPhone, for example, or on your little 7S, you have to market that yourself, even if you get a distributor.
How do you do that? How do you get it out there?
You do that by word of mouth. So you go to like all these review sites, right? Like I've literally sent, I'm not exaggeration, probably 900 to 1,000 emails in the last 5 months. And I contact them all and I say, hey, do you want to see my movie? Do you want to screen it? Do you want to look at the trailer? And then maybe 20% of them get back. And maybe of those 20, half of those actually do it. And maybe 3% of those don't even do it, even though they said they would. So it's a constant battle, It's like when you go, like if you're in your job and you travel somewhere and you give out your business cards to everybody, and everyone's like, oh, okay, well, I don't need a plumber in Tuscaloosa, but nice meeting you. It's the same kind of thing. But one guy's like, dude, yeah, that's right. My mom lives in Tuscaloosa and she needs a plumber. It's that kind of thing. Like you just keep pushing it and pushing it. You get eyes on it. Like I'll go to even little sites that have like 300 subs and I'll be like, hey, you want to do a trailer review? And they'll do it. And I'll say, awesome, thank you. That's 300 more people that would never even heard of me before.
Huh. That's really interesting. I know one of the biggest challenges people have with YouTube these days is building the audiences and building that following. I mean, we still struggle with it on the Corridor Crew channel. We struggle with it on the Corridor channel. It doesn't matter how big your channel is. You're always building your audience.
And it's constant.
Yeah. I gotta imagine it's even more difficult for a film when it's a single shot out of the blue.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it is. So part of that is you can try to get ads and all that stuff, but that costs money. And in our world, we don't have a lot of money. We're doing it ourselves. We're like financing off our credit cards a lot of the times. So, but word of mouth goes a long way. Another way you can do it is you could, if you have a controversial subject, you could go to the other side and be like, hey, did you know this guy made a movie about devil worship? Yeah. And then like all the churches will be like, ban this movie, and then double the people will see it. So that's one
That's smart marketing.
Yeah. So think outside the box. What is my movie? My movie's called The Incantation. It's awesome. We shot it all in France, which is really great.
Oh, that's dope.
Yeah, you guys should check it out.
Which part of France?
It's called the Cher region, like Cher, like the singer. It's sort of central France. I picture it as South France in my mind for some reason, but it's about 2 hours south of Paris. Like right, if you threw a dart right in the middle of France, it's right there.
Okay.
But it's like castles everywhere, and God,
of course.
it's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Gotta have castles.
Yeah, gotta have castles. Only in France can you just find castles everywhere.
Seriously.
What's The Incantation about?
The Incantation, it's about a story, a fish out of water story. So like this young woman goes, her great uncle dies, so she gets an invitation to come to France to the castle. So she goes to the castle, and weird, crazy things start to happen. And then she starts to meet people. She meets Dean Cain, and she meets a chambermaid, and she meets myself. I play this vicar, which is basically like Rasputin, like a crazy priest, really demonic looking.
Did you have all the facial hair and stuff?
Actually, my beard was longer, my hair was really long. They said this is a movie they'd like to watch more than once because there's little things hidden in it that you don't really get the first time.
Okay.
But when the reveal comes at the end, kind of like M. Night Shyamalan, but like the Jude version, but better, yeah.